The room was cold and silent. Bright white lights shined down from the ceiling. Metal tables stood in rows, each holding a body. They were human bodies, 5 of them. They looked peaceful, like they were sleeping. But they were not asleep. They had been taken. Dr. Varex, a tall alien with silver skin and 4 long fingers, walked slowly around the table. He wore a dark coat and thin glasses over his glowing yellow eyes. His assistant stood nearby holding scanners and data pads. This was the first time their people had captured humans alive. For many years, the Galactic Research Corps had only heard stories about Earth and the creatures living there. Some said humans were weak and wild. Others said they were smart but primitive. But now, finally, the truth could be tested. Varex stopped next to Subject 3. The human was male, strong-built, with dark hair and many scars across his chest. "Strange," Varex muttered, tapping his pad. "Their bodies are too perfect for such a low-class species." One of the assistants, a young female named Teely, looked nervous. "Are you sure they are asleep?" she asked quietly. "Level 8 sedation," Varex said. "If that doesn't hold them, nothing will." He reached for a surgical tool and slowly moved it toward Subject 3's arm. The metal edge touched the skin. Suddenly, the human's eye opened. Teely screamed. The tool dropped from Varex's hand. The human blinked once, then smiled, a slow, dangerous smile that didn't belong in a place like this. He sat up. The straps on the table stretched, then snapped like they were made of paper. The human stood. "Sound the alarm!" Varex shouted. Red lights flashed. A loud siren echoed through the lab. Guards ran in with plasma rifles, shouting commands. The human didn't run. He didn't speak. He just stood there, calm, watching everyone. Then he moved, fast. In less than 3 seconds, 2 guards were on the floor, their weapons broken. One assistant tried to run, but the human was faster. He grabbed the exit door, pulled it right off the hinges, and tossed it across the room. Chaos spread through the lab. Varex ducked behind a table, shaking. Then, just as quickly as it started, the human stopped. His head turned. His eyes locked onto one of the walls, a security camera. He walked over to it and stared directly into the lens. "You took the wrong people," he said. His voice was deep and calm. "Now you'll see what happens." A moment. Later, a dart hit his neck. He staggered, grabbed the wall, and fell. Sleep caught him again, but not before his eyes burned one last time into the camera. Black-suited guards rushed forward and dragged him back to the table. Varex stood slowly, his body cold with fear. That night, a private message was sent to the High Council. It contained one video: the human escape, the speed, the strength, the voice. No one spoke as they watched it. No one dared. When it ended, the council leader turned to the others. "We may have made a mistake," she said. Back in the lab, Varex began new tests. They brought stronger machines, tougher restraints. The humans were studied more closely now. Their muscles held energy that shouldn't be possible. One subject's bone structure was harder than steel. Their nerves responded faster than the lab's best machines. "What are they?" Teely whispered as she read the data. "They're not like us." Varex didn't answer. He was too busy reading something new, a DNA report. It showed unusual sequences, strange patterns that didn't match any known species. Human DNA was built for adaptation, for pain, for survival. It was like their bodies were made for war. "Are they born this way?" Varex asked himself aloud. "Or did something, make them like this?" The human who escaped, Subject 3, was still sedated. But even under the drugs, his body fought. His heart rate stayed high. His muscles twitched like they were always ready to move. He looked calm, but the machines said something else. Danger. Varex began to feel something new. something he never felt in his long career of science. Fear. What if these humans were not just strong? What if they were weapons? The next day, the lab doors opened again. This time, 2 members of the galactic military walked in. They wore red armor and carried heavy plasma weapons. One of them looked at the humans on the tables and said, "We heard your report. The Council wants full testing. We want to know if they can be used." "Used?" Varex asked. "As soldiers," the officer replied. "If they are this strong, maybe we don't need to fear them. Maybe we can control them." Varex looked at Subject 3. The man's eyes were still closed, but Varex couldn't shake the feeling that he was still aware, still listening, and still waiting. Outside the lab, the stars twinkled silently, unaware of the storm that was building. But deep inside that room, something had changed. The galaxy thought humans were just another species. They were wrong. The lab had changed. Security had tripled. Extra guards stood at every door. Heavy restraints were placed on every human subject, even while unconscious. No one was allowed near them without military clearance. The failed escape of Subject 3 had frightened everyone, including the galactic military. But it also made them curious. High Commander Tharn, a battle-scarred alien with 4 arms and glowing blue eyes, stepped into the observation chamber. He was known across many systems as the strongest soldier in the galaxy, but now even he looked cautious as he faced the human behind the glass wall. Subject 3, whose name they still did not know, was awake. He sat in silence, staring at nothing. His hands were chained, legs locked to the floor. He had not spoken since the day of the escape. Still, Tharn could feel something dangerous behind those quiet eyes. "Begin the stress test," Tharn ordered. Inside the test chamber, machines. Powered up. Heavy weights lowered onto the human's shoulders. Gravity fields pressed down harder and harder. Most species would collapse under 4x gravity. Even Tharn himself had maxed out at 6x during his prime years. Subject 3 stood still under 8x gravity. His muscles tensed. Veins bulged across his arms, but he stayed on his feet. Then the field reached 10x. The chamber shook. The machines beeped warnings. "He's still standing," a technician whispered. "Impossible," said another. "His bones should have shattered." The human looked up. Slowly his eyes locked onto the camera again, and then he smiled. The gravity field short-circuited with a loud pop. Sparks flew from the machines. The power grid inside the room shut down. "Enough," Tharn said. "That's not natural." Dr. Varex stood beside him, taking notes. His hands were shaking. "Commander," he said quietly, "we're seeing something we don't understand. Their pain tolerance is off the charts. Their muscles regenerate faster than any known species. Subject 1 recovered from a broken arm in 2 days. Subject 2 resisted mental probes for over an hour. And this one?" Tharn asked, pointing to Subject 3. "He hasn't even reached his limit yet," Varex admitted. The next test was even more dangerous. They placed Subject 2, a female human, into a combat simulation chamber. The plan was simple: fight against holographic warriors. But to their surprise, she didn't need weapons. She used her fists, elbows, knees, and even her environment to destroy every simulation. She fought like someone born in battle, like war was her natural language. After the test, she stood inside the chamber, breathing calmly. The simulations. Damage report was a mess. Walls broken, AI systems disabled, and all targets eliminated in under 1 minute. "Do they train their civilians like this?" asked one military officer. Varex shook his head. "These aren't trained soldiers. These were civilians, randomly captured." Silence fell across the room. If normal humans could fight like this, what were their real soldiers like? Later, the lab attempted one more test. They used a mental probe meant to read a subject's deepest fears and thoughts. The device had worked on over 400 species. It had never failed. It failed on Subject 3. The moment the device connected, it sparked, burned, and died. The human didn't even flinch. He just looked at the scientist and said, "Don't try that again." It was the first time he had spoken since the escape. That sentence shook the entire research team, not because of the words, but because of the calm voice, the control, the warning. He didn't scream. He didn't attack. He simply told them in clear, simple words that enough was enough. Commander Tharn returned to the council with a full report. He stood before the galaxy's leaders and showed them videos of the tests, the strength, the speed, the focus, and then the warning from Subject 3. The council watched in silence. "They're not just people," Tharn said. "They are something else, something built to survive, to adapt, to fight." One council member stood up. "What are you suggesting?" Tharn looked at them with cold eyes. "I'm saying they are not just a species. They are weapons, living, breathing weapons. We should not study them. We should fear them." A long pause followed. Then the council leader spoke. "Are they a threat?" "That depends," Tharn said. "Are we smart enough to leave them alone?" Back at the lab, Subject 3 was returned to his room. As he sat down, he whispered something to himself. The cameras recorded it, but the scientists didn't notice the meaning until much later. He said, "They're just now beginning to understand." And somewhere deep in space, beyond the galaxy's edge, other humans had noticed the missing ones. They were searching, and they were close. The aliens thought they were studying humans, but in truth, the humans were waiting, watching, and preparing to respond. Galactic Command met in secret. The video recordings from the human lab were played again and again. Every officer had seen them by now, some more than 10 times. But no one had answers, just questions. Dangerous questions. Why could humans survive? Gravity tests that crushed other species? Why could they heal so fast? Why did their minds reject mental probes? And most important, what else were they hiding? High Commander Tharn placed a black box on the table. He looked at every council officer in the room before pressing the button. A 3D image flickered to life. It showed Subject 3 standing still under 12x gravity. "He should be dead," Tharn said. Yet he stood like it was normal. That's not just endurance. That's design. The word design made the room go quiet. "You believe they were made this way?" asked a council member. "Not by us," Tharn said. "Maybe not even on purpose. But something in their evolution forged them into survival machines." Dr. Varax entered the room next. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. "We ran every test. Chemical, biological, neurological. And the answer is clear. Humans are the most dangerous life form we have ever studied. Not because of their weapons, but because they are weapons." He tapped the screen again. A chart appeared showing strength. Levels of different species: Zarnak soldiers. Level 7, Drathan warriors. Level 8, Karn beast species. Level 9, humans. Level 12, point. Another chart showed pain resistance, mental pressure, recovery speed. All of them. Off the scale. "The Council has 2 options," Varax said. "Classify humans as allies, or classify them as threats." A vote was called. Most voted threat. Meanwhile, back in the lab, Subject 2 was pacing her cell. She noticed things. Small changes. More guards, tighter security, fewer tests. She was being watched more carefully now. Every move recorded, every word analyzed. But what the aliens didn't know was that she was also studying them. She had learned the guard rotation. She had memorized their communication signals. She had even found a way to fake sleep so she could listen to nighttime shifts. Subject 1, in the next cell, whispered to her when the guards weren't looking. "They're preparing something." "I know," she replied. They're afraid now. Subject 3 was the calmest of them all. He sat silently in his cell, staring at the wall. But his mind was working fast. Every test, every scan, every chemical they injected, he remembered it. Not with fear, but with calculation. He knew they were near the edge. And then, it happened. One of the junior guards, new to the post, decided to test Subject 1's limits. He turned off the shock field and stepped inside her cell. He pointed a weapon at her and told her to kneel. She didn't. He fired the weapon, but she moved faster than he expected. The shot missed, and she kicked the weapon from his hand. She didn't attack. She just looked at him and said, "Wrong choice." Alarms rang. Guards flooded the hallway. Gas was released. Electric fields surged. And in the middle of the chaos, Subject 3 stood up in his cell. The chains tried to hold him. They failed. He pulled once. Metal snapped. He pulled again. The wall cracked. He didn't run. He waited. Moments later, Subjects 1 and 2 were dragged back to their cells. Their faces were bruised, but their eyes were clear. And Subject 3 said just one thing. "Now they'll start planning to kill us." Back at the Council's war chamber, Commander Tharn looked over the final decision. New classification, human. Type Omega threat status, biological weapon. Handle with extreme caution. "We'll move them to the secure facility on Helix Prime," one officer said. "No," Tharn replied. "If we move them now, they'll know something's wrong. And if they act, we won't survive." "But we can't leave them here either," Tharn nodded. "Then we prepare a kill protocol, just in case." The Council agreed. A secret order was written. If any human shows signs of organized escape or internal communication, terminate all subjects immediately. The file was marked top, secret. But someone had already read it. Deep inside the lab systems, hidden behind layers of alien code, a silent observer had broken through. It was a small signal, weak, almost invisible, but it pulsed every few minutes. It was human. A secret tracker implanted in Subject 3's body had finally connected to a long-range signal outside the galaxy. The message it sent was short. Location, confirmed. Subjects, alive. Situation, escalating. Request, intervention. And far beyond the stars, on a dark moon orbiting a dead planet, a fleet came online. Earth knew where their people were, and they were coming. Not to negotiate, not to talk, but to get their people back, and anyone in their way. Would learn why humanity was never meant to be caged. In the deep cold of space, far from any stars or light, something ancient began to wake. On the edge of the Orion arm, a hidden moon shifted. Beneath its surface, metal doors opened, and from inside, giant machines came to life, quiet, fast, and deadly. Earth had received the signal. A beacon from Subject 3's implant had reached the lost Terran defense network. For 73 years, that network had remained silent, hidden from all maps. Now it was active and angry. Inside the moon base, Commander Reyes watched as the display lit up. "Location confirmed," the AI said. 3 human assets alive, detained by alien facility codenamed Delta 4. Reyes narrowed her eyes. "Prepare Protocol 9. Behind her, technicians began unlocking black command cases. Inside them were activation keys, each marked with a symbol long forgotten by the galaxy, Earth's broken shield with fire behind it. The symbol of war. "Deploy scout ships," Reyes ordered, "and wake the fleet. We're going to get our people." Back at Delta 4, the alien base continued normal operations. But something had changed. Subject 3 sat calmly in his cell. But he knew the signal had been received. He felt it. Not through technology, but through instinct. Something deep inside his bones told him the hunt was over. Now came the rescue. Subject 2 had noticed strange behavior from the guards. They seemed more nervous, more quiet. They whispered more, and some had stopped looking into the cells when passing by, as if they were scared to meet human eyes. Subject 1 started counting again. Every step, every sound, every shift in power. Something in the walls had changed, too. She heard new vibrations. Ships, machines, something was coming, and then it happened. The sky above Delta 4 turned black. Hundreds of ships came out of hyperspace all at once. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't ask for permission. They just arrived, silent, perfect, and ready for war. Earth's 9th Armada, once thought lost in the early wars, was now fully operational. Each ship was dark gray with armor that didn't reflect light. Some had no windows, just weapon ports. Some weren't even built like ships. They looked like living beasts wrapped in metal. Inside the alien command tower, alarms exploded. Invasion fleet detected. Origin unidentified. No response to contact requests. The base commander shouted, "Raise shields, prepare." "To fire!" But it was too late. The first Terran warship didn't shoot lasers. It didn't drop bombs. It dropped a message. Simple, direct, deadly. You have 3 humans. Return them. You have 10 minutes. The alien leaders were stunned. Only 3? They're coming with this force. For only 3? Commander Tharn knew better. They're not here for just those 3. They're sending a message. 1. We cannot ignore. 10 minutes passed. No humans were returned, and Earth responded. The sky above the base exploded as rail cannons opened fire. Hypersonic rods struck the shield generators first, then the energy cores. The outer defenses collapsed, like paper. But Earth didn't destroy the whole base. Instead, they sent a single unit down. A drop pod screamed through the atmosphere. It didn't use stealth. It didn't try to hide. It wanted them to see. Inside was a single Terran strike soldier, covered in adaptive armor, weapons folded into his arms. His name was Aegis 1. When the pod slammed into the ground, it sent a shockwave across the entire facility. Walls cracked, floors shook, and then the doors opened. Aegis 1 stepped out. He didn't speak. He just moved. The first hallway had 8 alien guards. Each carried plasma rifles. They never got a shot off. Aegis 1 moved like water, fast, silent, brutal. Arms swung, bones broke. Lights went out. The surveillance room went dark next. The cameras didn't go offline. They simply stopped seeing anything. Like the shadows swallowed the soldier whole. In the cell blocks, Subject 3 sat upright. He looked at the wall. "He's here," he said. Subject 1 smiled. "Took them long enough." Subject 2 began warming up her hands. "Let's not make it too easy." Suddenly, the cell locks clicked. The doors opened. Smoke filled the hallway. Aegis 1 stood at the far end, barely visible through the gray mist. Said only one word. "Move." And they did. Not like prisoners. Not like rescued victims. But like a team. Like soldiers. They followed Aegis 1 through the burning base. More guards came. More turrets fired. It didn't matter. Aegis 1 cleared. The path. The 3 subjects covered his flanks. It was smooth, perfect, efficient, like they had trained for this their whole lives. When they reached the extraction point, a ship was already waiting, sleek, fast, with no markings. The door opened. A voice from inside said, "Welcome home." They stepped in, but Subject 3 paused. He turned back to look at the burning alien facility, and he spoke. Soft but clear. "This is what happens when you test human limits." The door closed, the ship vanished into the stars, and behind them, the base exploded. Earth didn't leave anything behind. No data, no witnesses, just a message left in the wreckage. "We don't start wars, but we end them." Far from the ruined base of Delta IV, deep in the center of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was already in emergency session. 12 species, each old and powerful, filled the golden chamber. Their faces were filled with fear. Fear not of war. War was common, but of something else. Fear of humans. The recording from Delta IV had reached them only hours ago. At first, many thought it was a fake. A human war fleet rising out of nowhere, a single strike soldier defeating elite guards in seconds. 3 subjects moving like trained killers? Impossible, but the proof was clear. No one answered the Council's messages. The fleet had no code, no signature, no flags, and that made it worse. "Where did this fleet come from?" shouted High Speaker Zarn of the Krell. "We tracked all human. Systems. They had no military left." The Xeline representative, small and made of crystal, spoke softly. "You were wrong. We all were." The Council played the footage again, frame by frame. First, the arrival of the ships. Silent, cold, perfectly timed. Then the message. "You have 3 humans. Return them. You have 10 minutes." And then, the storm. The alien base was wiped clean. Not fully destroyed, but erased, like a message being rewritten. Only one thing remained, a warning written in fire. We don't start wars, but we end them. The silence in the chamber was heavy. For the first time in centuries, the Council had no answers. Ambassador Yara of the Solari stood slowly. "There is something you should know. The humans we took, subjects 1, 2, and 3, were not random." "What do you mean?" asked Zarn, voice tight. "They were test results. Survivors from an old project. Humans exposed to impossible conditions. Heat, cold, poison, fear. And they didn't break. They grew stronger. The Council chamber buzzed with whispers. They were not soldiers when we captured them," Yara continued. "But we were wrong. We thought we were studying animals. We were studying weapons." A thin alien with 6 eyes leaned forward. "And Earth knew? They sent a fleet just for 3? "No," Yara said. "They didn't come for just those 3. They came to show us something." "Show us what?" "That humans are not extinct, not broken, and not alone." Across the galaxy, strange things began to happen. Ships started vanishing. Satellite feeds were quietly disabled. Spy probes went dark, and old Earth frequencies, long silent, were suddenly active. Someone was moving in the dark, and it wasn't the Council. Back in Terran space, far from prying eyes, Subject 1 stood on a glass platform inside a huge hidden base. It was not on a planet. It floated in space, surrounded by hundreds of ships, some new, some ancient. She watched them with calm eyes. "I remember when Earth had none of this. We were alone, weak, afraid." Subject 2 laughed softly. "Not anymore." Subject 3 was silent. He was reading a file. New orders. Commander Reyes walked in. "We've awakened more than just the fleet. The Council will panic. They'll come fast." "Let them," Subject 1 said. "They need to understand." Reyes nodded. "They will. But we don't just need revenge. We need control." Subject 3 closed the file. "We take the first step. Outside, the Terran Defense Network pulsed with new energy. Drones, ships, satellites, all moved in perfect order. Earth was back, but this time it wasn't coming as part of the galaxy. It was coming as something above it. On Council World Virex, fear had become panic. Leaders screamed. Plans failed. Defense. Grids were tested, retested, and still found weak. Someone hacked the Council's main data vault. Old files about Earth's original wars were copied and deleted. No trace left behind. One high-ranking officer, a reptilian general, stood up and said, "They are sending a message. If we don't respond, they'll think we're weak. We must strike." "Strike what?" shouted another. "We don't even know where they are." The truth was simple. The Council had thought humanity was over, but humanity had only been watching, waiting, preparing. And now they were not sending diplomats. They were sending warnings. Subject 3's final message was, "Clear, we wanted peace. You chose to cut us open and study us like toys. Now you've learned the truth. Our bodies are weapons, but our minds are worse. We learn, we remember, we rebuild. You've touched fire, now burn." The message was delivered across every council frequency. Every species saw it, even the ones who had once been Earth's allies. Now, all of them had a choice: submit or prepare for war. In the cold darkness of space, beyond the maps used by the Galactic Council, there was something forgotten. A moon-sized object, floating in the shadows between stars. No name, no lights, no signs of life. But deep inside, it was awake, and it was human. This place was called Vault Zero, Earth's most secret creation, so hidden that even most humans didn't know it still existed. Long ago, before Earth fell silent, the old Terran leaders built it for one purpose: to hold the weapons they swore never to use. Now, Vault Zero opened for the first time in over 100 years. Subject 3 walked through the large metal doors, followed by Subject 1, Subject 2, and Commander Reyes. Behind them, engineers and soldiers moved quietly, eyes wide at the sight of the ancient machines. "Everything looks untouched," Reyes whispered. "It's been sleeping," Subject 1 said. "But not dead." The lights came on slowly, soft white at first, then bright blue across the endless halls of machines. Giant tanks held armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Racks of weapons taller than trucks lined the walls. Rows of war drones stood still, waiting for orders that had never come. And in the center of the vault was a long black platform with a glass box. Inside was a suit of armor, sleek, black, and glowing faintly. It was labeled God Hand. Prototype Unit 01 Subject 3 stepped closer. This is what they feared most: a weapon made to fight entire armies alone. Reyes looked uneasy. It was never tested, not even during the last war. "We'll test it now," Subject 2 said with a smile. "On the Council." Subject 1 placed her hand on a scanner beside the box. The armor responded instantly, breaking apart into small pieces, rising into the air. It hovered around her body, scanning, checking, adjusting. Then, in seconds, it locked onto her like a second skin. The light changed, now red. Power readings spiked. The base trembled slightly. She turned to the others. "It fits." And for the first time, even Subject 3 looked surprised. Not by the armor, but by her eyes. They were glowing now. Meanwhile, the Council was falling apart. Their spies had tried to locate Earth's hidden fleets, but nothing worked. They sent probes. Those never returned. They hired mercenaries. Those vanished. They tried to trace the message that Subject 3 had sent, but all they got was a second message, sent back to them across their own top-secret channels. "You cannot find us. We already know where you are, and we are counting." The Council realized the worst truth. Earth hadn't just come back. Earth had never truly left. Some species began to panic. Others begged for peace. But one leader, the High General of the Raxar, demanded action. "We must strike the homeworld now," he yelled. "Find Earth and burn it before it spreads." But Earth wasn't sitting still. In space, across silent areas near black holes, more of Earth's hidden vaults began to wake. Vault 7, a base full of drone swarms that could eat entire cities. Vault 13, a shipyard with unfinished ships, now completing themselves using AI builders. Vault 21, A long-range weapon pointed directly at the heart of the Council worlds. One by one, these ghost systems came back online, and behind it all was one command center, Vault 0. Subject 3 stood in the control room, watching old screens come to life. They showed every planet that had ever hurt Earth, every species that had ever taken from humans. He pressed one button. It sent no weapon, no ship, just a signal. On planets across the galaxy, old human agents heard a beep. Tiny chips in their arms lit up. They stood from their homes, jobs, prisons, and walked away, silent, focused. Earth was calling its children home, and they were answering. Subject 1 tested the God Hand armor in a simulation chamber. Lasers, missiles, gravity bombs. All of them hit her. None of them broke through. She moved faster than light sensors could track, jumped higher than alien suits could reach. She was no longer just human. She was something more. Subject 2 watched her. "How many of these do we have?" Subject 3 answered, "Only 5 were made. Only 1 survived. But if one is this strong..." Subject 2 began. Subject 3 nodded. "Imagine 5. On a hidden frequency, a message went out. To all Terran survivors. This is not a call for revenge. This is a call for truth. We are not monsters. But we are not prey. We were tested. Now we respond." The galaxy trembled. Old enemies prepared for battle. Old allies didn't know which side to pick. Because, this time, Earth wasn't asking for help. It was giving a warning, and next, they would send a demonstration. The galaxy thought it had time. Time to prepare, time to plan, time to survive. But Earth never gave time. It gave only one thing, a message. That message came in the form of a ship, black, silent, and shaped like a blade. It appeared above a council. Military base on planet Vora, the heart of the Raxar Empire. There was no sound, no warning, no demands. The ship hovered for 2 minutes, then it fired a single beam of blue light. It didn't explode, it erased. The entire base disappeared. No fire, no smoke, no crater. Just a clean, perfect hole in the ground, like the surface had been wiped by the hand of a god. The council watched from their war rooms in disbelief. Thousands of soldiers, gone. Billions of credits in tech, gone. Even the ground's data sensors, buried deep under the crust, were vaporized. Then came the signal. This was not an attack. This was a demonstration. Panic spread. Ships were scrambled. Defenses raised. Alarms rang in every system. But no one knew where the Terran ships were. No one knew where to strike back. Because Earth wasn't fighting with fleets. It was fighting with ghosts. Subject 3 sat in the command chair inside Vault 0, now orbiting a dead moon. Around him, ancient screens and control panels flickered with data from across the galaxy. Beside him, Subject 1 stood in her God Hand armor, now fully synced to her body. Her eyes glowed steadily, calm but unreadable. "We've shown them a piece of what we can do," Subject 3 said. Subject 2 smirked. "They still don't believe it." "They will," Subject 1 replied softly. "They will beg us to stop." She wasn't angry. She wasn't even excited. She was focused, and that made her more dangerous than anything in the galaxy. Across dozens of planets, small Earth cells activated. Humans who had hidden for years, working normal jobs, suddenly vanished from sight. They stole data cores, shut down defense shields, and sabotaged weapon factories. No one saw them coming. No one could stop them. Each of them had been trained in silence. Each of them carried neural links to Vault 0, and all of them knew the same truth. Earth doesn't forget. On Council World Ornak 3, one Terran agent walked into a meeting hall with 30 armed guards. He held up a small cube, smiled, and said, "Remember, when you said we were weak?" The cube glowed, and the building collapsed into dust. The High General of the Raxar screamed at his advisors, "Find their world! Find Earth! We will burn it to ashes. But Earth had been hidden for too long. Its location wasn't in any map, any star chart, any system. It had moved, or perhaps it had never stayed in one place. Some believed Earth no longer existed. Others whispered it had become something else. A moving fortress, a planet-sized ship, a living intelligence. The Council sent 10,000 probes across the stars. They all vanished. Subject 1 stood in the deployment chamber. Around her, 4 large pods began to open. Inside them were the other God Hand suits. Silent, waiting, deadly. She touched the first one. I remember when we were scared, she said. When we begged for peace. When we lost cities and our children. She turned to Subject 3. No more. He nodded. You are the message now. The suits activated, one by one, and then Earth's final message was sent. Not with words, but with motion. 5 God Hand units dropped into 5 Council planets, all on the same day. They moved like shadows. They destroyed only military targets. No, civilians were harmed. No cities were burned. Only the powerful were broken. Only the war makers. In 3 hours, 5 empires collapsed. And then, silence. Not a threat, not a demand, just silence. The galaxy waited and waited. Until, finally, Vault 0 sent a final message across every channel, to every leader, to every system. We are not your enemies. We are not your rulers. We do not want your worlds. We only want truth. You called our bodies weapons. You were right. But you forgot. We never wanted war. You brought it to us. Now we go quiet. Do not call us again, because next time we won't bring warnings. And with that, every God Hand disappeared. Every vault shut down. Every human fleet returned to silence. No one knew where they went. No one dared to follow. For the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy was quiet. Not because of peace, but because of fear. Earth was not a death world. Earth was something worse, a world that remembers, a world that prepares, a world that waits, and the galaxy would never forget again.